Hello, everyone. We're going to give folks a few minutes to get joined in on the info session, and we will get started. We're gonna wait just a few minutes. We're just giving everybody a few minutes to join us if you want to complete the poll while you're waiting, and then we're going to get started probably in about 2 minutes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. It looks like we're steadying out on our folks who are joining us. So I will acknowledge in the poll, it looks like the majority of students are out of state who are on the call and have been accepted but not deposited for the most part, although about a third of you have already committed. And then that we need to do some Georgia Tech education. So the good word, what's the good word? If you hear that around campus, the answer is to hell with Georgia. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Carrie White. I'm the Director of Operations and Strategic Alliances for Housing and Residence Life and responsible for occupancy management and assignment processes that we'll be talking about today. So we're going to share some information about what it's like to live on campus, about the application process and the living learning communities, as well as that application process, and answer some questions both live that you have here, and then we've curated some of our frequently asked questions in the presentation to hopefully get some of those out of the way before we get to the end. So the way this will work is you can drop questions in the Q&A. I've got some colleagues on the call with me who are going to be answering those potentially as I go, and then saving some that I will answer live at the end. And so you just feel free to continue to drop those in the Q&A section of the presentation. We are recording, and this will be posted on our website within a couple of days. All right, we got a short video we want to show you. No sound, Kate.
One second.
Sorry, we didn't test this right beforehand, but I think we know how to make it work. There we go.
Imagine for a moment you're a yellow jacket at the Georgia Institute of Technology here in Atlanta, Georgia, where a uniquely advanced group of jackets have come together to learn and create as a swarm. This is the campus resident, a subgroup of the yellow jacket species that chooses to live in habitats located directly on campus. For this subgenus, it seems living among the campus buzz has led to more consistent success in academia as well as social life. Daily life in the colony starts early. The residential jacket has the advantage of waiting until the last minute to rise before beginning their journey to in-person classes. While others spend time in miserable daily migration, these jackets enjoy some extra shut-eye or more time for a hearty breakfast before starting their day. You might think that living in this urban environment would limit the yellow jacket's opportunities to experience the outdoors. In fact, the residential habitat includes many green spaces and access to trails across campus and the entire city. Seeking sustenance is also much easier for the residential jackets, as the additional access to convenient dining halls provides them with a constant and reliable source of nutrients. When they return to the nest at night, these jackets benefit from the presence of trained, experienced yellow jackets who provide enrichment programs for their group and see to the overall wellness of each individual member. With all the benefits and conveniences of living life in campus habitats, it's no wonder many yellow jackets are eager to join the swarm. Find more buzz about our residential habitat on the Housing and Residence Life website, where you can start your application to live with the swarm in the coming year.
All right, so we'll talk a little bit about applying for housing. So this presentation is for our incoming first-year students. And so that's what we'll be focused on for all of the information that you're receiving today. So our application for our incoming first years opened on January 29th. Students must commit to Georgia Tech and pay the admission deposit before they can apply for housing. So you have to do that first. You apply at our website, housing.gatech.edu. There's a My Housing button in the top right-hand corner, and you click on that and you'll be able to apply. There is a one-time non-refundable $80 application fee in order to apply for housing. And that fee, like I said, it is a one-time fee. If you apply for housing in the future, you never pay it again. but it is non-refundable. So if you cancel or decide not to live with us, you don't get that fee back. There is no deposit. There's no application deposit. So there's no housing deposit required. The only deposit that's required is the admission deposit. Your application is not complete until you have signed the contract and submitted your application. And if you're under 18 at the time that you apply, then you'll be asked to have your parent or guarantor sign as well, and they'll fill out their information right directly into the housing application. You'll receive a confirmation email that you've applied, and you'll be able to go back to the application and update information as needed. Completing your housing application as a first-time incoming first-year student puts you in line for a room selection time ticket. So when you sign your contract and submit your application, that's the order in which you will receive your room selection time ticket in the summer. So if you're the very first person to apply, then you'll have the first time ticket. And then remember that completing your housing application allows you to accept living learning community invitations. So you can apply for LLCs right now, but you won't be able to accept an invitation from one until you've applied for housing. And we do have a step-by-step guide for the housing application on our website. And you can look at, it has screenshots and everything, so you can actually see what the application looks like. So some really important things to remember about housing at Georgia Tech. It is not required for anyone. No students are required to live on campus, and it is not guaranteed. Okay, so it's not required and not guaranteed. And as I just said, room selection numbers for new students are assigned in order of the application completion. So when you sign your when you sign your contract and submit your application is the order in which you receive your room selection time ticket. And while there is no deadline to apply for housing, the sooner you apply, the more choices you have. And that's related to the order in which you select rooms based on the completing your application. All right, so we already have a few questions we're going to answer right now. And then, of course, feel free to continue to drop your questions in the Q&A section. So if you apply late, meaning, late in the summer, it's after, it's in June or July. Again, remember, we don't close the application, but we will reach a point where we need to assign your room instead of you choosing it. So that self-assigned process, that room selection process where you get to pick your room will happen at a certain time. And if you apply after we've sort of gotten to that point, then we will assign you as opposed to you being able to select your room. And remember that you can't accept a living learning community invitation unless you've completed the housing contract. So if your planned roommate has not been accepted to Georgia Tech, maybe they're on the wait list, or they haven't, or it's May and you haven't, they haven't been accepted yet for some reason, then you would be able to complete your application, but they can't complete a housing application until they've been admitted and paid their admission deposit. But you should go ahead and complete yours, because you can pull your roommate into your room for the self-assigned process. So the person with the highest or the earliest time ticket would assign both roommates. And remember that only if you are participating in a living learning community, you will only be able to choose roommates who are also participating in that community. So you wouldn't be able to select them as a roommate if they haven't been accepted to Tech or haven't deposited to Tech or applied for housing. Do we have a roommate pairing service? We don't have a service, but in my housing, when you go into the application itself, there is an opportunity for you to answer some questions. That's actually required. So you'll answer some questions about yourself, and then you can actually match other people who've answered similar to you. And you can pick which questions are important to you. And then you can actually ask that person if they want to be your roommate. And if they accept the invitation, then you'll both you'll be roommates, and then you'll live together. And if you don't know, or don't you just want to go what we call random, then you don't select a roommate. You just don't go through the process. You answer the questions, but you just wouldn't go through the roommate matching. If you do know who you want to room with already, you'll be able to see them and select them, assuming, if you're both in the same LLC or not, and that sort of thing. But all of those processes, the actual selecting a roommate and selecting a room, happen in the summer. So we won't start those processes until June. We want to let everybody get their application in first, and then we'll do roommates, and then we'll do rooms. So that's the order. And we don't set those dates just yet because we want to make sure that we're matching up with a whole host of other things that'll be happening this summer. And we want to make sure that we time that well. And then what do you do if you need an accommodation? Like you need to be in a building with an elevator. So the most important thing for you to remember if you need an accommodation is that you register with the Office of Disability Services. And again, you can do this after you have deposited and committed to Georgia Tech. You can register with the Office of Disability Services, and then they will tell us what accommodations that they recommend based on the conversations that you have with them and how you register. So you can, in the housing application, indicate that you will need accommodations, but those accommodations are recommended and approved only through the Office of Disability Services, and they will do that right in your housing application, and you don't have to contact housing or do anything else with us. We actually don't want to know. That's all between you and the Office of Disability Services. And then again, they will make the recommendations to us about what accommodations you need. All right, so there's a number of options that you have in addition to the first year experience when you're thinking about first year housing. So all students who are a first year student living on campus will participate in the first year experience. All of our first year buildings, including our Living Learning Community buildings, are first year experience buildings. So what does that mean? It means that you have a higher number of resident assistants, so upperclassmen who live in the building with you to provide support. It means that there will be a more programming offered in your space by your hall director and your RAs. Programming to help build community, programming to provide academic support, programming to provide support for well-being. And so all first year students are participants in the first year experience, and you don't have to do anything to sign up, and there's no fee. Students can choose to live in gender inclusive housing, and you can read more about what that means on our website. But when you apply for housing, you can select gender inclusive housing. You just need to remember that by doing so, you will only be able to choose a roommate who has also selected gender inclusive housing, and you'll only be able to see rooms that are designated as gender inclusive housing rooms. And they are all over campus in every building. So it doesn't limit where you live. It just, as far as buildings or which side of campus, it just, we have rooms that are near, restrooms and other things, the reason why certain rooms are selected as gender inclusive housing rooms. So we hope that you are applying for and considering all of your options when it comes to living learning communities. And students can apply for a living learning community right now. You do not have to deposit to Georgia Tech in order to apply. So you should go ahead and consider those, and we'll talk a little bit more about what those are and some of the questions that folks have about living learning communities in a few minutes. So we get this question, and for our out-of-state students, if you're not familiar with campus, this might not be one that pops up or that you hear about unless you're on Reddit or, listening or watching social media closely. But East versus West Campus, and we'll talk a little bit more later about how students feel about that and have an opportunity for you to hear from some of our students about what that looks like. But really and truly, it's do your research, see what amenities are in the areas, what things are close to, and that sort of thing. And honestly, I think most students end up loving where they are regardless what they thought from going in. All first year students are required to have a meal plan, even if you are participating in a living learning community in an apartment. So for example, the honors program and the Explore Living Learning Communities are both programs where students live in apartments. But as a first year student, you are required to have a meal plan regardless of that because of the community aspect that we're encouraging for our first year students. It's really important that we get students out of their rooms and work and spending time together. And so the meal plan is one way to ensure that that happens. And there's a couple of options that first year students have, and you can review those at mealplan.godtech.edu. And you'll be able to select your meal plan when you apply. All right, so we'll look at a couple of the residence hall floor plans just to give you an idea, but I really encourage you to look at the website and go through all of the buildings that are designated as first year buildings. And there's lots of pictures and virtual tours on the site, but these are some examples. For the most part, our traditional resident halls are double rooms, so 2 beds, 2 wardrobes, 2 desks, and 2 small dressers in the room. We do have some quad rooms, some 4-person rooms in many of our buildings, but most of the rooms are 2-person rooms. There are floor kitchens, so kitchens on the floor of these traditional halls, and then community bathrooms on the halls as well. And you can see a picture of the kitchen here, and then the floor plan example of a communal bathroom that you might find in our traditional residence halls. Some of our students will live in suites. Some of our first year students will live in suite style accommodations. And so you can see here a traditional versus a suite style space. The suite style space essentially is the same setup of 2 people in a bedroom, but instead of a communal bathroom on the hall, there'll be a bathroom in the middle of these 2 bedrooms. So you'll have, 4 people sharing 1 bath, and then there's also a kitchen on the hall, just like in the traditional spaces. All right, so the big question, East versus West, and we're going to show you a little video to help you make
Do you
some
mind
decisions.
telling me which is your favorite, East Campus or West Campus?
Ooh.
That's a good question.
Do you mean like where to live or where to be?
I feel like it depends on what your style.
There's like good sides of both.
I really like West Campus because there's a lot of green space.
I prefer East, but we like coming over here to eat at West Village.
Majority of dorms in the freshman experience are located in the East Campus.
It is typically more social.
Personally, I find myself a lot more involved here.
I know, there's just more to do there. I enjoy the climate on East.
But on West Campus, like we've got the Broadway Bowl, we've got the CRC.
I do like West a little bit better. It's more lax over here.
There's some really good restaurants on West.
Has easy access to the CRC where people go to work out or like play basketball.
That's where the band does everything.
There is a Salvation Army right near West, and we have a tendency to thrift.
There's also Woolwich, where in my opinion, the food there is better.
If you like good food,
Hands down Village.
I really like Bridgeton.
North Avenue is the best.
Nothing like a nice nav dinner on a Friday night. They got ice cream sundaes, the cookies kind of slap.
I saw they had sushi last week.
I think West's a little more quiet.
this is more of a quiet area on campus.
I've gotten used to the sound.
I really just went to West Campus for the CRC.
Like on East, there's a lot more people walking around.
East is the best. It is right next to Bobby Dodd.
And you got Tech Square right over there.
I also find that it's closer to things.
Everyone, everything.
Location.
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 Location. There's like 2 types of tech kids.
I'm gonna have to go with West Campus.
I mostly stay on East.
Gonna have to go with West Campus.
East Campus, definitely.
I like West better.
For sure, East.
More of my friends are on East Campus.
There's nothing special about them.
I almost lived on West. I feel the pain.
I don't know a single soul that lives on West.
Band.
Do East. Like, that's where all the Greek life is.
West Campus is better.
Glennon Towers have this, like, I feel like they have this little superiority complex. My room is literally right there. West Campus is amazing!
East! West Campus is the best!
Smith Roy or Village, North Avenue Dining.
Campus!
West Campus. East. West Campus. I like to be close to the football game.
At least I'm on East!
It's a good time. Make the most of it.
It's too loud on the East. It's quieter on West Campus. I have a social life.
I honestly like both sides of campus.
Do you mind telling me which is your favorite?
So I'm sure that didn't help a ton, but maybe gave you some ideas about how students feel about the different sides of campus. It does seem that most students end up very happy with whichever side they end up on, and often feel like it's the best no matter what. So hopefully that helps give you a little bit of a taste about that. I do want to back up for just a second and say that I said that the meal plan options would be in the housing application, and that is not the case this year. So you will want to go to mealplan.gotech.edu to purchase your meal plan. That's not a part of the housing application. So I apologize for that mistake. It's no longer there. All right, so first year living learning communities. What are they and what does that mean? I see a question about LLC. LLC means living learning community, right? And these are communities that students can participate in, and they have a variety of themes and sort of the way that they operate. So Explore, Global Leadership, Grand Challenges, and the Honors Program are all academic year living learning communities. They start in the fall, and you are a participant in the fall and the spring semester. The first year semester abroad program and the Ignite program start in the summer. And Ignite is a summer only program. So students participate in the summer, and then they can actually participate in Explore, Global Leadership, Grand Challenges, or the Honors Program too, if they want to. And so it is a summer living learning community. The first year semester abroad, you may have heard about this, is pretty unique. Students will come to Atlanta for 3 weeks in the summer, and then they will go abroad for their fall semester, and then they come back to Atlanta for the spring semester. And there's 2 options right now. We have Georgia Tech Europe, which is in Metz, France, and we have the Oxford program in England. So students can sign up to join either of those. And that information is in your admission portal as well. So all of these you apply in your admission portal. So you've been admitted to Georgia Tech, you can actually go in right now and apply for Living Learning Communities straight from your admission portal. And you can apply for all of them. And then when you get an invitation or maybe multiple invitations, then you would need to select just one of the academic year or first year semester abroad programs, in addition to Ignite, if you're going to participate in Ignite. So you know, it's up to you, but you really want to give yourself lots of options. I would go ahead and apply to all of them. The application is really simple. And so I would encourage you to look at that and make some decisions about, you know, what interests you. Please review the programs and what they offer and what their requirements are, because they do have requirements. All of them do. And there is a fee to participate. So, you know, do your research and make sure that you know what you're getting into for each of these programs as you accept invitations, right? Go ahead and apply, and then look and see what each of them offers you. All right, we're going to talk about some living learning community application processes. So we tried to make this easy. It's a little bit complex. It's not complicated, but it is a slightly complex. So I want to make sure folks understand. If you've been admitted to Georgia Tech, you can commit to and deposit to Georgia Tech and apply for housing. And if you've been admitted to Georgia Tech, you can go ahead and apply to as many living learning communities as you want in the admission portal. It's a separate process from housing, and you don't have to have applied to housing in order to apply to the LLCs. Then later this spring, if you've applied for living learning communities, you will receive invitations. You'll get an email, but they'll be in your admission portal. You'll be able to see the invitations you've received. And after you've applied for housing, you can accept one invitation, right? So the LLC application process is slightly different than the housing, and it is separate. You do housing on the housing website. You do the Living Learning Community application in your admission portal, okay? So our Living Learning Community application is open in the admission portal. You can apply now through mid-April. And then we will start sending our invitations for students who apply, and I don't think those dates are on here, but who apply for the early round. No, if they apply by March 11th. Is that right, Allison?
If you apply by March or February 18th, then you'll receive your decision in March.
Thank you. So if you apply for Living Learning Communities by February 18th, which is the priority deadline, you'll receive your invitation on March 11th. If you apply after that, there's a deadline. You'll want to look at the LLC website. You'll get your invitation on April 15th. And then after that, it's rolling admission into the Living Learning Communities. They are first come, first serve. And if you don't apply by February 18th, but you were an early action admit, that's okay. You can still apply for Living Learning Communities. That's just the deadline at which we sort of, stop and read everything and send out invitations on March 11th. So that's why those dates exist. But you're not in the LLC until you accept your invitation, and they are first come, first serve, right? So let's say you get your honors program invitation and you sit on it for a few days, and then you come back and it's grayed out. You can't accept it anymore. And that means that other people took those spots. So you'll want to make sure you kind of know what you're looking for and what you want to do. And that's when we also send out those invitations at the same time, right? So all of the Living Learning Community applicants will get their invitations on March 11th and April 15th. And then after that, it's like each day. All right. So first year experience program required, and is there a fee? I think I talked about this pretty well earlier in the presentation. It is required. It happens just as the fact that you're on campus, and so you will all be participants, and there is no fee. You don't have to do anything to sign up. Do you have to live in a traditional residence hall? All first year students will live either in a traditional or suite style hall, unless they are a part of the honors program or Explore Living Learning Community, and those students live in apartments for the 24-25 year. Do you have to have a meal plan? Yes. The meal plan is a part of the first year experience, and it is required, including those students who will live in an apartment as a participant in the honors program or Explore. So how do you know what rooms are available when it's time for you to pick your room? So when your time ticket opens, and when Self-Assign actually opens, you will be able to go onto our website and see what rooms are available. And it's in real time. So as they get taken, then they're no longer available. So you'll be able to go to that link and look at those rooms before you select your room. And so, all the traditional halls, you should really just review them on the website. Like I said earlier, pictures, virtual tours are all up to date. And make sure that when you're going to look at that available room list, that you give yourself several options so that if something's not available to you when it's time for you to self-assign, that you'll know what your second and third choices are. If you're in an LLC, where do your roommates and you live? So students who are a participant in a Living Learning Community are required to live with their community, with other community students. And so each program has a residence hall or two that their students live in, and that information is on the housing website as well as on the Living Learning Community site. You can review which residence halls are associated with which communities. And you will select your roommate and self-assign before general self-assign starts. So you will get all of that done, and then we'll open up general self-assign to the rest of the population. All right. So after you've completed your housing application later this spring, in March, if you apply early, April, if it's a little bit later, accept your Living Learning Community invitation that you have. You can accept one unless you also accept Ignite. And then in June, you'll do roommate searching, so you'll be able to select a roommate. And then in July, you'll be able to select your room. So we call that self-assign. You'll be given a time ticket based on when you sign your contract. In late July, you'll have the opportunity to room swap if you need to. So if you want to change rooms with someone else, you'll have the chance to do that in the housing application itself and swap rooms with, or in the My Housing portal, you'll be able to swap rooms with someone if they want to swap. We will do Ignite summer students move in June 20th and 21st this year. And then August 2nd is when Ignite students will move out either to their fall assignment or move home and then come back at fall move in, which will be August 10th and 11th for new students, and it will kick off the week of welcome. So it's important to know that when you select your room, you will also select your move-in appointment. And it's not a guarantee that you can get either Saturday or Sunday. It'll be what's based available. And so we have a really intense, I will say, move-in process. And in order to make sure that all nearly 4,000 students can move in over those 2 days, we assign you a time when you should arrive. And it's really important that students meet that time. And I shouldn't say we assign you. You're able to pick your time, but we have limited times for both days, right? And so when you pick your room, you'll be able to pick your time. And the reason it's tied to your room is because we open up a certain number of move-in appointments per day by building. So please, please, please check your email. And if you see things coming from housing, read and review them, because we will send you a lot of information over the summer, getting you prepared for move-in. So it's really important that you read and follow any instructions that you get from us. All right. So I've seen a few questions come in. I think we've answered a few. We'll answer some more live and then continue to make sure we get everything answered that we can. Also visit our website, housing.guyattech.edu. Follow us on social media. All right, Kate, what do we got? You're muted if you're talking.
I just got the button. Sorry.
Okay.
All right. Well, I know that a lot of the questions that came in already have been answered. So I was going to have us go ahead and start with the ones that had not been answered. And then we can circle back to the ones that we've already dealt with as soon as we get through those.
Okay.
So the first question is how difficult it is to get on campus, housing as an upperclassman.
Okay.
Which for some of these students thinking ahead, great question.
Yeah. So we prioritize our first-year students and our rising second-year students on campus. We also save space for new transfers and new grads. So we have very high demand and limited housing for our upper class students. So our third years, fourth years, fifth year seniors, our second and third year graduate students, very limited at that point. But we do prioritize and ensure that, students living with us in their first year and in their second year who apply during their application phase opening will have the opportunity to live with us.
We had a question about when folks should apply. And I know for some folks, they are weighing maybe multiple colleges. This person is weighing multiple colleges. So if they commit in mid to late March, is that too late for room selection? So that's a great thing to clarify.
Yeah, absolutely not. So March is still very early. May, students are still applying for housing in May. So and we have enough housing to accommodate the number of students that will enroll as first-year students at Georgia Tech, right? And as I said, we prioritize those students getting housing. We understand the benefits, and research proves out that first-year students really and truly benefit the most from living on campus. And so if you wait until March or April or May to apply for housing, you will absolutely be able to pick your room later in July, right? We don't even do room selection until July. So, really and truly, we're looking for students to get those apps in by July 1. And we feel like that's plenty of time to be able to get your application in. We recommend earlier, but you'll be fine.
I think I saw this question come in before we watched the East versus West video, but there's a question about what is different in the experience depending on which side you're on. So I wonder if you can just talk about like dining hall is kind of one resource that's a little different and maybe a little bit more in terms of resource and or proximity.
Sure. So we have a large cluster together on East Campus of our first year traditional residence halls, and there's a dining hall right there as a part of that community. Also, and that's Britton Dining. There's also North Avenue Dining, which is directly across the highway or the street from East Campus housing. And so there's two dining halls very, very close right there. It's right beside the stadium, and most of the Greek housing is also in that area. On West Campus, the first year traditional halls are a little more spread out and interspersed within the apartment style housing around West Campus. There is a dining hall there as well. And it is right by the CRC and the intramural fields right beside, and the CRC, I'm sorry, stands for our recreation center. So our gym and pool and all of that is on West Campus, as well as, like I said, the intramural fields. Proximity to the center of campus, it's all pretty close as far as, you're coming from one side or the other. There's the student center, our undergraduate learning center, the library, all of that is easily within walking distance from both sides of campus. Obviously, the students have lots of opinions about, this or that, but as far as amenities go, it's pretty equally met depending on which side of campus you live on. There's dining options. You can still walk to all of the center of campus easily and that sort of thing. And of course, there's buses that go all over campus and take you to all the parts. I would say East Campus is right near the highway, the actual freeway, and close to what is known as Tech Square. And so there's some, other amenities close to that side of campus as well.
I know we did primarily focus on incoming first years today, but if you can talk high level just about for new graduate, new transfer students, kind of like their timeline and the way that we keep a little bit for them.
Sure. So we do hold some space for new transfer students and new graduate students, and so as students are admitted to those programs, then they will have the opportunity to apply for housing. We also have family housing on campus for students who are going to live with a spouse, domestic partner, or children. And so if you're living with your spouse, your domestic partner, or your child or children, then you would apply for family housing, and that is the only type of family housing that we offer. Graduate students can apply beginning in early February, and I'm not going to say the date right off because I'm not exactly sure. I think it is open now. I think it opened on February 1st. And then families will open later this month. And then transfer students, it's, many transfer students are not admitted until summer. And so we do hold beds in order for transfer students to be able to apply at that time.
And along those lines, Carrie, is there, can you talk just a little bit about the graduate housing that we have?
Sure, right. We, 1 and 2 bedroom furnished apartments for our graduate students, very similar to our undergraduate. The biggest difference with our graduate housing is that laundry is included in the unit, in the apartment. And so you would, in a 2 bedroom, you would live with a roommate. In a 1 bedroom, you would live alone.
We've had a couple of questions about honors and LLCs, and I would love to start with the question about just generally what is the value add of being in an LLC versus not? Like, what is the true advantage of being in an LLC?
Sure. So I think for some of the programs and some students who are picking LLCs, it's really about what the LLC will offer in terms of extra or co-curricular or academics. So for the honors program, you'll have the opportunity to take honors program courses. and then complete that degree designation as an honors program student over the course of your time at Georgia Tech. Living with other students in the program gives you the opportunity to participate in programming and community building outside of the classroom. And that's true for all the living learning communities. If you're interested in working in a team and working on projects, then I would say Global Leadership or Grand Challenges would be programs you would really want to look into. And all of the programs are really focused on developing the community as a whole and having students really work together for a variety of reasons, whether that's co-curricular or academic, curricular programs that they're offering. But there's also a lot of programming that's offered to those students outside of the classroom. So things like whitewater rafting and trips to the Civil Rights Museum and tickets to see shows in Atlanta, as well as, bike rides and tree planting, and the list goes on and on. So there's a lot of opportunity to learn about Atlanta, to really feel like you have a real close-knit, small family within this bigger place right there in your residence hall. In addition to that, you have access to the faculty directors of that program and the other faculty who work with the program, who will meet with students, whether it's in the classroom or through, coffees or lunches or dinners or lectures. There's all kinds of opportunities to get to know faculty who participate with the program. And then there's additional staff resources as well. So each community has their own staff who have offices in the residence halls who are a great resource for students. So it really does take, a really big place and give you that very tight-knit, small community feel that many students are looking for. And it's sort of this instant group of folks that you have something in common with. So it certainly wouldn't separate you from other first-year students. You're going to have lots of opportunities to be in classes with and do programming and research projects and all kinds of things that students will be involved with, where you will be involved with other parts of campus and other students on campus. But it does give you that home base in a way that is really unique to participating in a living learning community.
Like I mentioned, we did have a couple specific to honors program. One of them was just about since those students live intermixed with upper class students, how does that kind of change their experience or their connection with the first year class?
Sure. So they will live in the same building with upper class students, but everybody in their apartment will be first year students. And many of the courses that they take will be with other first year students. And so I think it gives sort of this vertical integration where you have some mentorship from those upper class students who are in the building. Some classes you will have with those upper class students, but that would be the case, of course, with any place you live. You're going to have classes with people who are not first years. And then, but I do think that there's a lot of programming built specifically for the first year students in the honors program. So I will also say that the biggest difference there is that they all are living in the same building to some extent, as opposed to other communities where your living learning community upper class students are involved and they live together, but not in the same building. So they will live together in a nearby apartment and be involved in programming and in the classes as facilitators and mentors, but not necessarily living with. So, I think it is unique. It does provide some additional resources for students who are participating in the program.
Fantastic. We had another question to go to next. An important clarifier for those who haven't heard the term this way. When you say programming, what do you really mean by that?
Yeah. So programming could be anything from cookie bake-off in your residence hall to a trip to go whitewater rafting for the whole program. It could be additional tutoring that's offered specifically for students who are a part of the community, or a dinner with faculty who want to come and talk about their research. So it's really like, it runs the gamut, but it's specialized events and activities that are designed specifically for the students and offered only to the students in that program.
We also had a couple questions about how to make changes to your application or your profile once you've submitted your application. So can you talk a little bit about that and remind folks to update their phone number?
Absolutely. Yes, you can actually just go right back to the My Housing portal. You can review your application and edit it right there. You can, there's a lot of resources in the portal itself, forms and different things that you can click on and look through. But definitely want to make sure that you have your phone number and your email address and everything is updated in your profile. You just go right back to housing.govtech.edu and click on My Housing and log in, and then you can update that for us. Phone number is really important because we do text you information, and sometimes when we have a really important email that we definitely want you to read, we'll send you a text that says, hey, we just sent you a really important email, you should read it. We won't always do that, but we do want to have the opportunity to text you when we need to.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We did have a question about whether or not folks can stay after move-in, and I would love to make a plug for you to talk about Week of Welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, students will stay after they move in on the 10th or 11th, and we have what we call at Georgia Tech a Week of Welcome, and there's many activities and events throughout the whole week to help you get familiar with campus. There's lots of, meals and events. There's, all kinds of outdoor events, indoor events, academic programs that are offered for you to learn more about academic or co-curricular, like how to get involved with research, how to start thinking about internships, how to think about study abroad. So there's a lot of like resources that have throughout the whole week, and you'll have a calendar on your in an app on your phone where you can RSVP to different events and say that you want to attend. They do some really fun things. They bring in the big inflatables. They have some barbecue style meals that they offer for students, and it's just a really great opportunity for students to kind of ease into college life before classes start and really get familiar with campus and also with all of the really robust and extensive resources available to students at Georgia Tech.
All right. An important question about whether or not folks can have visitors in the traditional or apartments.
Yeah. So visitors can visit. Visitors can visit, escorted by the student who lives in the building. We don't do overnights in traditionals, obviously, because you're in the same bedroom with another person. And so you wouldn't have people staying overnight with you in that space, but they can certainly come as long as they're escorted by you at all times. And so, yes, they can come in the building. But if they're caught without you, that's where things get tricky. And remember that you're on a floor. Typically, most floors are gendered. So you'll have a female floor and a male floor because there's only one communal bathroom on the floor. So if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend who visits, you need to make sure that you're escorting them down to the main floor for the guest restrooms, and that they're not going in to, gendered restrooms of the opposite gender on your floor. So you want to think about things like that if they're visiting. Also, remember you're living with another person, so you'll want to make sure that they're aware and comfortable with the folks that you're bringing around.
We had a question about whether or not folks can complete the, complete the application and then cancel after they find out what their financial aid looks like. With that, I would love for you to talk about penalty schedule, please.
Yeah. So yes, our first year students have the ability to cancel. Jennifer, I'm going to ask for help here. I want to say penalty free until July. Yeah, July 1st. Thank you. So yes, first-year students can cancel their housing application penalty-free up until July 1st. So that means that the only thing you would pay is that $80 application fee, and that is non-refundable. But you would not be charged for housing starting up until July 1st. Now, after July 1st, then we do start charging you fee if you cancel. And that's an incremental fee, and you can review it on the website, and it'll be in your contract. It'll tell you exactly which dates, each fee starts. And it starts like at $500, and then it goes up from there until, like after move in, we'll charge you for the full semester. So it's that sort of like graduated fee schedule.
Thank you. There was a couple of questions about suite inventory and how likely it is to be snapped up. So if you can talk about that, it's a common one.
Yeah. So we have, we expect to have almost 4,000 first years, not quite, more like 3,800 first year students living with us next year. And we have around 500 suites. So that's the ratio. We have about 500 suite beds and 3,800 students. So 500 of that 3,800 will have the opportunity to select a suite instead of a traditional. But I will say those are not our first to go. That's some students prefer it, but they're not our first, inventory to be snapped up.
A question that pairs well with that, because I always think it's the reason that they don't get snapped up quite as quickly. Who is responsible for cleaning the bathrooms in the suites?
Very good. Yes. So cleaning the bathrooms in the suites is the responsibility of students. Our communal bathrooms are cleaned by our housing custodial staff, who are phenomenal. But if you live in a suite, you are responsible for everything in that space, including the bathrooms.
Love it. We had a great important question about whether or not we have AC, and I mentioned about our fleet of mechanics. But if you can just generally talk about not just AC, but ambient air, environmental issues, etc., that folks should be aware of.
Sure. So yes, we do have air conditioning. We have in all of our rooms. We do have older buildings, some are quite old as far as when they were originally built. And then some are, and the remaining are, 60s and 70s. So still getting up there. And their HVAC systems, as well as other systems, have been renovated on a different set of schedules, right? And so, but we do have, functioning mechanical, HVAC, air conditioning, heat in the rooms. It is Atlanta, Georgia, and Atlanta, Georgia, if you're not familiar, is very hot and humid, very humid in the summertime and early fall. And so there are a lot of things we do to help students and educate students around how to utilize their HVAC systems to ensure that they're not inviting problems. So when things are really humid outside, we want to make sure we're running, the air conditioning and not opening our windows and inviting that moisture into the building. And so students are given a lot of information about how to manage that. And if we start to see problems in a building overall, then we will address it with the whole building and try to make sure everybody is sort of following those general guidelines. The units are in the room. The air conditioning units are in the room and controlled by the students. And we change the filters on a regular schedule. We have a lot of preventative maintenance that goes on. We have an entire maintenance team that works, year round to both, handle all of our preventative maintenance, but also handle problems when they come up. And so students would be able, if there is a problem with their air conditioning or their heating while they're here, then they would submit a maintenance request, and that would be addressed by our teams.
There was a fantastic question about if we can have the same housing for Ignite and Fall. So please throw in about transition.
Yeah. So we would love for you to do that if you're able. It will depend on when your self-assigned time tickets and all of those things work out. So if you're here for the summer and participating in Ignite, then you'll live in either Glen or Towers residence halls. And when it comes time for you to self-assign, you will already be in your space, right? You'll already be living in the summer, already here when it comes time to self-assign for the fall. So if your room is available, we highly encourage you to stay there because that means that you don't have to move. You don't have to move your stuff. And again, it will just depend on when your time ticket is. It is 2 separate application processes. So you will apply for summer housing and you will apply for the academic year housing. And you can do that in any order that you want. It doesn't really matter. But as far as being able to stay in that space, again, it'll just depend on if you're able to choose it when it comes time, meaning that somebody else had an earlier time ticket, didn't select it. That's really what it means. And sometimes they might select, the room next door, and we might swap y'all so that you can stay. If you are able to get in the room next door to the one you're currently in, that kind of thing. If it's within the building, we'll try to make sure that folks who are, can stay. But there's a lot of work on the back end that goes into checking that and working on that. And Jennifer, who's on the call, her team really works hard to make sure that happens.
I think we're down to just the last 2 questions before we call it for the day. The first one I saw Jennifer wanted to make sure we answer about how the housing available to you might change if you choose gender inclusive housing, especially if every floor is gender based.
Right. So actually there's probably less options available to you if you select gender inclusive housing, which is what I'm assuming you mean by mixed gender. So because, like I said earlier, the floors are gender based. We do have in our traditional halls very few bed spaces that we can designate as gender inclusive housing because we associate those with our restrooms that are single use restroom, right? And there's only 1 to 2 in each building. And so we would set aside a certain number of rooms on that floor to be associated with gender inclusive housing. We have a bit more of the gender inclusive housing options in our suite style housing, right? But it doesn't increase your options to select gender inclusive housing, but there are spaces in every building.
Great. Well, the last is kind of a 2-for question, but there was a question about price differences between different housing and then also just where to learn more about housing. So since you can kill both of those or feed both of those birds with one stone, with one answer, please take that away and close us out.
Yeah, absolutely. So please visit our website, which is currently on your screen, housing.govtech.edu. And then you will see housing options as one of the menu choices. I believe that's what it says. And you select that and you can actually filter on that page. And also from that page are our rates page. And what you should know about our rates is those are this current year, and we have to have our rates approved by the Board of Regents in the University System of Georgia. And so once our rates for next year have been approved, then those will be posted, but you can get a sense of what those rates look like. And they are based by building and room type. So you'll be able to see like, oh, this suite style, and here are the buildings that are suite style. The rate for that is this amount. And those are per person by semester. But yeah, definitely housing.govtech.edu and check out that explore housing options menu option. All right. Well, I think that we will probably hang on and answer any additional questions in the Q&A to make sure everybody's question gets answered. But I appreciate you all joining us today, and please don't hesitate to reach out to the Housing Help Desk. You can find that at Contact Us or contact the Help Desk on our website. There's a link there for both being able to call or submit a ticket. You can even chat with the Help Desk folks, and they have all the answers to all the questions for sure. And they can definitely answer anything that you need and point you in the right direction. I know our website has a lot of information, but really spend some time digging in there and you'll find what you need. So thank you all.